As manager, you're the primary representative of your department, both inside and outside the company. In other words, you're the Chief Marketing Officer or CMO of your department. In this episode, we'll discuss what this means, why it's important, and how to market your department successfully. Hi, I'm Rick Kendall.
And I'm Fred Ball.
Welcome to Management Mastery. The purpose of these podcasts is to share what each of us has learned about good and bad management in our combined over 40 years of experience, both as managers and executive coaches. During that time, we've coached managers at every level in companies from Fortune 100s to brand new startups in all major businesses, including nonprofits, government, and education. So whether you're just starting in your first management position or are an experienced manager looking to strengthen your management skills, we know our podcast will be valuable to you.
In previous episodes, we've discussed the fact that you represent your department in many different settings to those outside of your department. In those episodes, we were talking about what might be called passive representation, in that regardless of what you did, people saw you as a representative of your department. In this episode, we want to address a more active representation of your department, what might be called marketing your department. By that, we mean actively promoting the work of your department, the people in your department, and the mission of your department to those both inside and outside your company.
Yeah, while it might not seem obvious at the outset, this is a bit of a balancing act. On the one hand, you want to actively promote what your department does, its achievements, its strengths, as well as its staff. But on the other hand, you don't want to be overly aggressive in touting your department and staff. This can come across to others as boastful or overly competitive with other departments, or as simply just hogging the spotlight. Therefore, the promotion of your department has to be done in the context of supporting the overall mission of the company as a whole, while at the same time talking about the contributions of your department to that overall mission of the company.
And Rick, that requires that the manager have a very good understanding of not only their own department, but also what the company is trying to achieve.
Right, and where their department fits in all of that, yeah.
At the same time, however, being too reluctant to promote your department can leave important stakeholders wondering exactly what it is you and your staff do and what contribution they make to the company. So it is important that you thread this needle in making sure people are aware of what your department does, its accomplishments and its strengths, while at the same time not being too overbearing and alienating stakeholders and colleagues. So what are the main functions of you as the CMO of your department?
Well, first, Fred, you want to make management and your customers aware of what it is you do. I mean, in some departments that's obvious, and others it's not necessarily so clear to people. I mean, this may seem obvious, if the title of your department is sales or accounting, but it isn't always obvious to people not directly connected to your work. You, of course, need to use judgment in terms of to whom and to how much detail you describe to people what your department does, but you must constantly be aware of the level of knowledge of your audience in just about any business situation and address it accordingly. In other words, read the room. Know what people already know and what's important for them to know, and don't oversell, but don't undersell either.
Yeah, and I'm sure that in the marketing area, as you know, there are many different ways that you can focus. You also must make sure that management and your customers are aware of your successes. Again, this involves a tricky balance between being too modest or overly aggressive in promoting your department's accomplishments, big and small. It is also important that when describing the accomplishments of your area, that it not be done in a competitive sense. That is, you don't want to frame it as how your department outperformed another area of the company, but rather just give the objective facts of what your department did and leave out any comparison to other parts of the company.
Yeah, I think we've all had the experience, I know I have, of working with someone who had a parallel department to mine, and this person always had to present what their department was doing as more important than what everybody else was doing, and that the other things were really trivial and not important. And it just was, unnecessary and annoying to me in particular, but I think other people saw through it too. But this person was very hyper competitive, and in the end, it did not serve this person well. That's for sure.
No, I was going to say that sooner or later, the senior management above that manager is going to see what he's doing, and it's not going to be a good reaction for him.
No, he actually found himself eventually job eliminated.
Yep. No, that can happen if he takes it too far.
It's also important that you take into consideration the various audiences for your marketing activities with regard to your department. For example, you need to be sure that your boss is aware of what your department is doing, how it's succeeding, and what it's capable of doing going forward. I mean, too often, managers assume their bosses are aware of all that's going on in their department. And unfortunately, this isn't always the case. As a manager, you need to be sensitive to how much your boss is aware of what your department is doing and how it's succeeding and what more it could be doing. I mean, they've got other departments to worry about, so they're not necessarily, especially if you're competent and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and the boss, oftentimes the only time the boss hears about your department is when somebody's complaining. So it's almost, it's kind of a catch-22. You're doing a good job, but people aren't aware of it because you're doing a good job.
No question. It's also important that you keep record of the accomplishments that your department is making, so that when you are talking to the boss, you make sure that you don't forget any of those important things.
Right, and I think sometimes when we use the word accomplishments, we think it's something that is, above and beyond your normal assignment. And just telling people you're doing your normal job, that's important. Again, because if it's going smoothly, that they're not aware of what it is you do.
That's right, and especially if some bosses are closer to you and stay close. And other bosses, just as you said, will be more distant, and they're the ones that really need to know what you're accomplishing.
Right.
In this regard, you definitely want your boss and your clients to be aware of anything additional your department could be doing in the service of their needs. Users of your services often don't see beyond specifically what you're doing for them in the moment, and therefore don't consider extra things you could be doing. Sometimes it's only by increasing the scope of your activities that you can grow your department and its utility and visibility within the company. You must be careful, however, that your expansion of what your department can do isn't seen to be at the expense of or in competition with other departments in the company.
Nevertheless, the benefits of expanding your department's portfolio or what it can do can justify increased support in terms of more staff or other resources, and as well as simply making your department more visible and valuable to the company. This, of course, can also significantly benefit your own career in the company.
Absolutely. As we've already said, a major mistake managers often make is to assume that corporate management, especially your boss, is already aware of everything you and your partner are doing. We just mentioned that. And the good manager makes the hard look easy and does the difficult things without complaining or bragging. While admirable, this can also lead to accomplishments being overlooked by management. You need to be careful this doesn't happen.
One way to keep management aware of what your department is doing and accomplishing is through regular written status reports of what your department's activities are and what's been achieved in a specific period, as well as suggestions for future assignments consistent with the role of your department. I mean, some companies require this, but a lot of companies don't. And even if it isn't required, and sometimes, like I said, they are, such regular status reports can be a very effective tool in ensuring that your manager and their bosses are aware of what your department's doing and where you'd like to take it. So in addition to just saying what you've done, you can also use this report as a way to make suggestions about what more you could be doing, issues that aren't being addressed in the company that may be appropriate for your department to take on. And by putting it in writing, you can control the message and ensure that it has the right tone and makes the right points correctly. And such a report can also be useful in pointing out, as I said, those areas where your department could do more if more resources were available, and how that could add to the success of the company as well.
And just as you were saying, the marketing can help people to better understand what you're trying to do. I have a situation where in an engineering company, technology is definitely needed and coding and so forth when sales has a client that needs a specific activity. But marketing, the activities of the IT department can also happen in the sense that they can explain to sales that this is not only good for this particular client, but they may be able to use it for a number of other clients and get increased marketing value.
Yeah, and I think I've talked about a client I had where they were new to a department and they were changing the focus from being reactive to proactive. That is, instead of just being an order taker, they were taking a much more strategic view of the business and its needs, and changing with the support and encouragement of their immediate boss, changing the nature of what their department was doing. And that involved, in addition to just changing the activities of the department, re-educating all of their stakeholders and users of the services so they understood, so the users understood the change and how it benefited their own department. So again, they had to remarket themselves within their own company so that people were aware of what they were doing and why it was an improvement.
Yeah. Another thing that you as the manager could do is have every individual on your staff also give you a regular written status reports. It can also ensure that you're aware of everything your people are doing and the contributions they're making, and then feeding that up to your manager and more senior management. This exercise can also go a long way in ensuring that the department is on track and doing what is needed to be done. One benefit of such reporting is that it gives you a structured way of keeping track of all of the assignments in your department and their progress and whether or not they're on track. It also gives your staff the opportunity to make suggestions for improving things and how additional resources could be used.
So, in this episode, we've discussed the importance of seeing yourself as the chief marketing officer of your department by ensuring that your boss and relevant stakeholders are aware of your department's activities, achievements, and potential. We also talked about how to ensure that by doing so, you don't come across as being overly boastful or competitive with other areas of the company. We hope you have found this podcast useful and will come back again for more management mastery. If you have any comments about this or any of our episodes, or would like to find out more about our other services, including one-on-one coaching and group seminars for managers, visit our website at careercoachclass.com. Thanks for listening.